Hey, this is Sashlea. You're listening to We Are In This Together. Today's topic, I am actually interviewing my brother. His name is Rajen.
Hello.
He is one of the coolest dudes around. He makes me laugh constantly. He has one of those super just infectious, funny energies.
Oh, you stop it. You stop it right now.
See what I'm saying? And he also, I have been really inspired by him because when we were growing up, he got into drugs and he got himself out. And I've been really intrigued by his story and how he did that. And so I'm going to have him just kind of tell you a little about himself and his story, and we'll just chat.
Oh, wow. Just diving right in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, like, all
Just
this
like,
other fluff.
just drop
get
the
right
curtain,
into it.
drop the curtain, shove me out there and be like, all right, this is my brother. He's going to tell you everything about him. Go!
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Let's see here. I'm 29. I'll be turning 30 this year, the big 3-0.
Woohoo.
I have been sober. Let's see here. I've been sober. I've been sober about 10 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
It's kind of an interesting thing because I never really considered myself falling into drugs. Like, I never really thought that, oh, what's this? This is unexpected. I knew what it was. I knew what it could do, or at least I didn't know what it could do yet, but
Yeah.
I knew that the path it could lead, but where I was more or less just taking everything to the limit, and I thought I was invincible, and I really wanted to see how far I could push it,
Yeah.
Let's see here.
So, like, what would you say, like, how, like, if you were to look back and think, like, why did I get into drugs? Like, what would that answer be for you?
Why did I get into drugs? I think that the pretty stock answers are there, that, like, a lot of people I was around were doing them,
So peers, friends.
Yeah, see, it was interesting for me because, I started playing drums when I was really young,
Mm-hmm.
and I started getting pretty good at drums at a young age.
You were really good too.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
But, I started hanging around people who are a lot older than me. I've always wanted to hang around people who are older than me. Ever since I was little, like, my friends or the people I looked up to were, our dad's age. Those were the people that I looked up to. And so I guess I was always way more mature for my age than people around me. And then the music came around, and before you know it, I went out of my way to start trying out for bands. Definitely, it was weird when the band would show up, and they're all in their mid-20s, and I'm, like 14, 15,
Oh dear.
And they'd sit there and be like, yeah, this kind of feels almost illegal hanging out with this young kid like this.
Gosh.
But I would start playing, and they'd all want to hang out. But
so they were kind of older, and they were into some of that stuff.
Yeah, definitely in the music. I mean, there's no secret. Definitely in the music scene, there's definitely a lot more drug use, alcohol use, cigarettes, all that stuff. But I never really pretended like I didn't know that was there.
Yeah.
I knew it was there.
Yeah.
I mean, from every movie we've ever watched, growing up is sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So I liked rock and roll.
Yeah.
I lost my virginity when I was 13, so I had that checked. So I knew
all
drugs.
These things.
Yeah, all these drugs. I'm like, I knew it was coming, but so I didn't pretend, and like a lot of times when bands would come try out, or I'd go try out for bands, they'd definitely be the first questions like, hey man, like, you mind if we smoke weed at your place, or you mind if we if we blaze up? I'm like, yeah.
So it was just like a super open atmosphere.
Yeah, it was super like, I didn't really.
And were you like ever like, oh, I want to try that, or was it like, nah, I'm good for a while, but then after a while, I was like, you know what? Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely wanted to try it. There was no stopping me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I more or less was just kind of like, I was more concerned in the beginning about just getting my skills up to a certain level, because I knew I was the young person in the group. So I definitely wanted to get my skills up first, and then it's just like a natural. I think it's a natural draw into it, where it's like everybody else is doing it. So I was like, cool, yeah, definitely. And then I started trying it. You know, I probably smoked weed the first time. I was probably 14, 15. You know, about the time I started trying out for these bands and.
So I have to stop you because I've always wondered this because they talk about this a lot, but they say, you know, a lot of the times when people turn to drugs or whatever, it's because they want to be accepted by their peers, could be one, or like they have some like stuff that's rough going on in their life and they just feel like they need an escape. Like, do you think that's true? Is that true all the time or just?
I think that can absolutely be true for a wide range of people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people who do it, because I've been around a lot of people who've done it for the first time, and I can see it in their face that this is their excuse.
Yeah.
You know, like, so they've been fighting with their parents, or they've been fighting with their significant other.
Yeah.
And then they just get this, you know, screw it attitude. Like, screw it. I'm just going to do this. Right?
Yeah, like that's their outlet.
That's their outlet. So I 100% believe that a lot of people definitely allow that kind of trigger to make their decision for them.
Yeah.
But me, it was more or less like, it's like, I want to try this.
Yeah.
You know, I absolutely want to try this. And not only do I want to try it, I guess mine would definitely more fall in line with like being accepted by my peers.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody around me, all these older people were doing it.
Yeah.
But I definitely went into it with the mentality like, I want to do this, but I want to not be blatantly obvious that I'm doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to be able to just blend in. I don't want to be that person who does it, because I've seen it, you know, like people who do it and then they freak out and like, and it just annoyed me.
Yeah.
So when I started doing it, I just acted like I'd been doing it for a long time, you know, and honestly, as a drummer, it's pretty nice because I get to hide behind my drum kit. So when I'm giggling uncontrollably or whatever, and honestly, like, it just made music that much more intense, that much more how much I wanted to play it. It just went hand in hand.
And so, like, you came into it thinking, I'm going to have control over this because I know myself and I really just want to try this. And it kind of made things cool and, like, all this other stuff that happened. Do you ever feel like it overtook you or it overpowered some things? Or, like, what was your journey with it?
I think that everything past starting to smoke weed was definitely like my own decision. I think I definitely became my own worst enemy in that sense, because I really didn't have a lot of thoughts in the sense of like, oh, this is happening to me, so I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
You know, it was more like, well, this is cool.
Yeah.
Like I like this feeling, so.
Like, it wasn't really like, oh, this could cause this. It was just like, hey, this is fun. I like it.
This is fun. I like it, and I want to keep trying more.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was probably the trailblazer, because for a lot of other drugs that me and my group of friends did, because they'd all be trying to keep up with me smoking, you know, and I would be like, well, what else is out there?
Yeah.
You know?
You're always like looking for the next thing.
Yeah.
So what was the whole evolution of you finally coming to a place where you were like, I got to get myself out of this? Like, what happened to where you were like, no, I can't do this anymore?
I think that I think my biggest problem with that was, you know, I started doing a lot more music. It was everything. I was I couldn't hold a relationship together, you know, like I dated women like they were objects rather than people, you know, and I think that just comes with the rock star attitude, you know. I was becoming pretty well known in the music scene locally, and I felt invincible. I felt untouchable. I felt that anywhere I went or walked, or a room I walked into, people knew me, and it felt good. So I think almost arrogance, you know, on my part. So where the problem came was coming down off some of these drugs. So, you know, you go from marijuana you go to marijuana to, you know, like obviously it's
Harder
weird saying
drugs.
marijuana. I feel like it's a commercial. Marijuana, you know.
It's so funny. But okay, so you go down to maybe harder drugs.
Yeah, so I
And then
started doing hallucinogenics. You know, I started doing like mushrooms, acid, a little bit of LSD here and there. Did mescaline a couple times. But when you come off these drugs and you start your own weird journey through them, I think that some people will either hit that point, because I had that question hit me where it was just like, wow, that was crazy. We made it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We can either stop.
Yeah.
There's always a turnoff.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, though, is every drug you use or anytime you get high, when you come off that, there's literally that choice you have, which is like, wow, we can either start turning off of this.
Yeah.
Or we can keep going down this same road.
Yeah.
You know? And I think, unfortunately, people allow that autopilot to just keep letting them go because maybe they feel guilty that they did it. Maybe they feel like accepted because they did it, you know?
Yeah. Or like, I can't, like that mind frame of like, I can't stop this. I can't get out of this. Like,
I think at the beginning, whenever you first do a drug, after that first high, you should, or at least I always had a profound feeling of that, where it was just like, wow, that was acid.
Yeah, like I can't stop because
Like I never did a drug. There's only one drug I ever did where I felt like I never want this to go away.
Interesting.
You know, and that was cocaine.
Yeah.
Right? But anytime I ever did a drug, I always had a feeling after it like, wow, that was acid, or like, wow, like that was heroin.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I hated downers. So
so a downer comes like after the high.
Well, a downer is just like a high, like heroin, opioids, you know, anything that just makes you feel like mud.
Yeah.
Like you literally like I smoked heroin off a sheet of tinfoil with some buddies of mine who that's all they did. They just smoked black tar off of tinfoil. And at the time I was out of weed, and that's what I was smoking. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take a rip off that. So, you know, I just torch up that piece of tinfoil and suck it through a straw. And
oh my goodness.
But the thing I felt, and I've talked to a lot of people who are heroin users, you know, a lot of my friends who did use it, and I guess, you know, I think it's definitely different for other people. I literally just felt like I was just melting into my chair.
And so you had all these crazy experiences with all these different drugs.
Yeah.
But then there was only so much until you finally were like, I don't want this anymore. Because you talked about downers.
Yeah.
But like, what else really motivated you to finally decide I gotta get out of this? Because I know, like, at least for me and anybody listening, like we all know someone who's been on drugs. And like I have other people that I know who and care about where the drugs is really taking over them.
Oh, absolutely. So I hated downers, but I loved uppers, right? Which is like cocaine, you know, mostly just cocaine for me. I did PCP once, and then I've also smoked meth once, but that was too crazy for me. But what I think is like maybe someone who's listening who is into drugs, they might kind of just understand, but maybe some people who don't understand, somebody they know who's doing drugs, is people will do drugs just to do drugs, but if you can figure out what specific drug they like to do, I think it's a lot quicker for you to identify the reasons behind it and how to help them. Because me, I didn't want to stop.
Yeah.
I didn't want to slow down. That's why I hated downers. I didn't like to feel like a pile of mud in a chair. The second I did uppers, it just elevated that feeling. So I was chasing the feeling of invincibility. You know what I mean?
So you could find like what was motivating you to have certain.
Because I think people who are into downers, I think that they're going to be a lot more inclined to feel sorry about themselves.
Interesting.
I think that they're a lot more inclined to blame, not necessarily blame, but hold on to more negative experiences a little bit longer compared to somebody who's like me, who's into uppers, where I just wanted to get away from everything and everybody.
Yeah.
I didn't want to stop.
You like the up feeling. You like the
it elevates the feeling that you're trying to pursue.
Yeah.
I think people who are super sad and definitely more depressed will tend to go towards downers because it's kind of like a self, like yes,
a
this is,
self-medication.
well,
Like
it's just like sinking deeper into the hole.
Yeah.
Whether they want to admit it or not, they kind of like sinking down into that hole.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, they'll say like, oh, I can't feel anything anymore. But it's like, and it's true, you can't feel anything, but the feeling you've done after it is way lower.
Interesting. Worse.
So they're willing to accept that lower feeling after.
Interesting.
So it's almost like they create their own ball of self-pity, of self-loathing. So it's like people who are more down driven.
Yes. Which you may not even know.
You might not know. You may, and like, obviously, people going through drugs is going to be way different for everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
But
you said something interesting. I have to stop you.
Okay.
Because I really like this.
What?
You said something earlier. You said, I think if you can find out why they like certain drugs, it will give you resources to know, like, what's motivating them to do it, number one. And then you can kind of start to figure out how to go from there. Because I know a lot of people listening have people they love that they want to help through this drug process, but they don't know how. So it's almost sounding like we have to be willing to actually, like, put our bias or our judgments or what we think of drugs completely aside to be able to say, hey, tell me, like, why do you like drugs? And just really be like just talk to me about it.
Whether you're religious or not, whether you're male or female, whether you're single mom, single dad, loving parents.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you need to throw all that out the window when you're addressing this. Now, that does not mean that you sit there and cater to it. That is a big difference, because
I agree.
Some friends I know are still on drugs because they were catered to through the drugs.
Yes.
Because their parents or parent or whatever or
spouse or loved
or
one
whatever made them feel like what they were doing is it's okay. It's okay you're doing this, but let's try to get away from it. No, that's diet soda to quitting.
Oh, gosh.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not okay.
Yeah.
But at the same token, on the flip side of that coin, you obviously don't want to make them feel bad.
Yeah.
You know, because then now they're just going to... You just have to try to understand, as raw as possible, try to understand what the beginning driving force behind it. Like, for me, honestly, I would say that I constantly wanted to go, and I constantly wanted to be my own person, because from the time I was young, I did not want to be told what to do by anybody.
And I wanted to be a lot of people like that.
Yeah, I wanted to be independent.
Yes.
From a young age.
I want to make my own decisions.
I want to make my own decisions. I would argue with anything anybody ever told me to do.
This is true. This is very true.
Parents, teachers, police officers. It didn't matter. Even if I got in trouble, I'd feel bad I got in trouble. Yeah. But I would still try to argue my point into it.
Yeah.
So for my driving factor for why I ended up doing cocaine for a few years, and why I ended up doing uppers, was I absolutely wanted everybody to bend to my will. Mm. And when I was high on uppers, I felt like I was an elevated form of myself that maybe other people would respect, would get out of my way, would, I mean, in some ways maybe even fear. I was you know what I mean? Like,
so you were doing certain things that were catering to, like, your personality, the natural thing of what you wanted. And so now you can talk to me this way because you've been sober for so many years.
And that was a big reason of how I got sober, was as me. I mean, we can get into the whole that, but
yeah, I mean, like, how did you decide to get sober? Because this is a question that a lot of people have. Like, I have someone I love who's into drugs. They say they want to stop, but they just keep falling into it, and I don't know what I can do anymore. So what would we do for people like that who are listening to this hoping, like, how can I help someone? Not necessarily I'm the one doing drugs and I want to get out of this, which we could talk about, absolutely. But, like, I have somebody I love. I don't know how to help them. They want to get out of it, but I just keep seeing things that tell me they don't, and I don't know how to help them.
Well, okay, I got two answers to that.
Okay.
And one of them, I think, that is definitely not a popular one, but number one is people usually only change when they hit rock bottom, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say one answer is help that person get to rock bottom as fast as you can.
And that is so painful.
And be available for them when they finally do. You know, and that is such a customizable response for so many people.
For sure.
That I'm not saying, kick them out on the streets as fast as you can, but in a structured way, you've got to kind of make them see that,
Yeah. Well,
like,
it's
this.
yeah, it's like, okay, you're choosing to do this.
Mhm,
Great. I will not support you in that.
mhm.
And my boundaries are telling me this is what I need to do. Because we're all just experimenting
I
to see
think
what's going to work.
I think that if, like, as a parent,
Yeah,
I think that one of the hardest things you could ever do is turn your kid away,
for sure.
right? I think that would
Yes.
be horrible.
And you are a parent,
And
so
I am
you,
a parent. I've
yeah,
got 2 daughters, and I worry about it myself, right?
yeah,
But I think that if you're the parent who slowly tries to cater them to
yeah,
being kicked out,
yeah,
then it's going to be that much easier for them to adapt
yeah,
to being kicked out.
yeah,
It's kind of like that scared straight situation. If you got a kid who comes home and he's 13, 14, whatever, 15, and he sits there and and you either find drugs on him or you find out that he's doing drugs, he or she's doing drugs or whatever it is, you need to get them in front of recovering addicts
mm,
as quickly as possible, or you absolutely need to drive them downtown, right?
mm,
Drop them off on that corner. Don't kick them out your front door. They know the neighborhood.
yeah,
They know the neighborhood. They'll figure it
yeah,
out. They'll go to a friend's
yeah,
house. No, you drive them downtown away from everything that they know and
yeah.
love, and you stick them in that situation where it's just like, this is your home now.
Wow.
And this is absolutely where you could be.
Yeah,
Because for me, our parents sold the house.
yeah,
My free ride was over.
yeah,
And I was slowly adapting to it like, oh, okay, this person moved out, right?
yeah.
So it's like, okay, that's cool. I still got this person to lean on. Or this
Interesting.
person, like, dad moved out, but the house is nobody. I'm just the only one living in the house.
Yeah.
Then it just becomes the band house.
Yeah.
I'm not learning. It was only until they literally came up to me, both of them, and they were just like, listen, we can't support this anymore.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be out of this house. And like the house was completely empty anyways.
Yeah.
There's no furniture.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was a beginning block of
Mm.
me, getting is actually within the next couple days that I really learned my lesson. But for the first answer is absolutely scared straight in your own customizable form
Yeah.
is a huge
Yeah.
thing if the kids are young.
Yeah.
Because I know so many kids right now, or I've seen so many parents who sit there and like they threaten the kids being a jackass or whatever, and the parents like, well, I'm going to take your phone for a week, and you can literally see it in the kid's face. It's like,
They're like, yeah,
sure.
right. Yeah.
Well, then how are you going to get a hold of me if I go missing? Listen, a 15-year-old kid, male or female, they're scared on the inside. They're absolutely terrified. And if you were to drop them off in downtown and you go park a couple blocks away, or you just sit there and you just get in your car and lock the doors and just see what they do, yeah, they might run. They might do this. Or they might try to get you to come back and be like, please, no. No, that kid needs to learn.
Yeah.
Like, this is your decision.
Yeah.
To keep doing this crap.
May lead you here.
It not may. It will. Yeah. It will lead you
Well,
here.
because some people think that. Some of the kids are in that situation. Well, it may, but it won't for me. Because they're in that mindset, And like, it's so interesting to listen to because I can almost feel the people who are listening to this. Some people who are listening to this going, I can't do that to my child,
Because you love that thing more than any.
Yes.
You love that small being.
Yes.
More than your own life. So to be able to drop it off downtown, like in front of like a park where you see other homeless people and everything, you're terrified for your kid. But guess what? Your kid will turn around and be like, I'm terrified to be here.
Yeah, that's true too.
You know what I mean?
Some of them probably will just.
Well, some of them are going to try to be hard asses.
Well,
and be like,
so let's talk about this. Okay, so I think you're saying something though really important. Like, I think sometimes as parents, we're afraid to try certain things because we're afraid, again, all fear, all this fear stuff about how, well, if I do this, then what if they never come back? Or if I do this, then what if this happens? And it almost sounds like we, the parents, would need support from somebody who knows and somebody who has seen what this can do either way. And it's almost like the parents need to get help to know and to be able to enforce certain things, boundaries, whatever that is for each person, like you said, customizable.
I think
to be able to do that for their kid.
And I think that one absolute great outlet for parents before they confront their kid about this is go talk to a recovering addict.
Yes.
Go to an NA meeting. Literally, you can go sit down in an NA meeting. you're free to go in there. You're free to sit down.
What's
you
an
can
NA meeting?
Narcotics Anonymous. It's like
Okay.
AA,
Okay,
Alcoholics.
so they can find these anywhere online. Okay.
Absolutely. They're totally community funded. They're totally free. Or even, you know what? You can even go down to uh, like the prison and everything, and you can
Yeah.
even talk to inmates who messed up their lives,
Wow.
as a parent, and you can get your own feel for how you want to do
Yeah.
this before you talk to them.
I love that.
Because like you said, everything's fear based,
Yes.
but everything's also fear fueled.
Yeah.
So a kid or a loved one who's using maybe out of fear for whatever reason are also continuing to use you through fear. Because they know, or at least they've learned from watching you their whole lives, that you're more scared of them being out on the street than of them being in this house using heroin.
Mm.
And they will use that.
Yeah.
If anybody who's ever had a kid who's ever done drugs, even my own parents would say it,
Yeah.
we all will use that fear.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
The fear that you live with, we'll use it as our ammo to keep doing something that we're doing because we're afraid of something. It's all fear-based.
Yeah. And it's like, how do we switch that into...
So, like I said, the first answer to that is 100% you got to fight fear with fear. You got to create a bigger fear in them of being this way compared to their current state of being.
Which is actually fueled by love.
Exactly.
If you think about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Overcoming fear takes a lot of love, self-respect, and boundaries is a form of love. And it's like, yeah, we can be so fear fueled, but how do we rise above that fear is by love. And then what you're saying. And I love that you mentioned us as parents or us as a loved one can go to these places and find out. I think that's exactly why I'm coming to you, is because I feel like so many people need to hear from someone who's been through it.
Absolutely.
Granted, knowing everybody's situation is going to be different.
Right.
And then you said you had a second thing, so let's cover that, and then we'll.
So my second thing is I think that, within reason, I think that parents need to not excuse the possibilities for getting your kid into therapy. And I'm serious, and I mean that in the sense of, if you were to ask any kid, or if you were to ask yourself about your own childhood, honestly, at least once or up to a dozen times, you can honestly remember a time where you felt a certain feeling that you felt your parents weren't understanding.
For sure. And having somebody outside of that to talk to.
Absolutely. I've talked to a lot of people to where they hold a lot of, I think it's a wrong-seated resentment towards their parents, because the feelings that they felt were never fully understood by a third party.
Yeah.
And when they only have their peers to talk to growing up, usually their peers are pissed at their parents about something else too.
Yeah.
So it just becomes a boiling pot of anger and rage because this kid's mad about something that his parents don't understand. Yeah. Right? And they're not giving him his the right explanation or enough patience for him
for sure.
to maybe
because they're dealing with their own stuff.
To change his mind frame about it. He's just leaving more pissed off and more misunderstood. Yes. Right? So then he goes and talks to his buddy because his buddy's the only one he feels understands him. And all his buddy does is like, yeah, dude, I totally understand. My mom is this way, or my dad's this way, and they literally feed off each other. Yeah. So I think that giving your kids the patience to be understood is a huge one.
So maybe even finding someone who could be a mentor that has been through drugs, because sometimes I know kids are like, therapist, no thanks, and and finding the right therapist to talk to is hard too.
Well, let me put this out there too. I think a lot of people cringe at the idea of therapy for one big reason, and that is it's money. It's expensive. Yep. It's absolutely expensive. But let me tell you something. You can go to any of your community courts, your city courts, anything like that, where people who are in recovery or having to do community service for their usage, you can get in front of these judges and say, my son is starting to act this way. My daughter is starting to act this way. Is there anybody who's in recovery who has made that journey from a user to a recovering addict that would like to maybe fulfill some of his community service hours that he still do by talking
Interesting.
to my kid,
Mm.
right? Or even when you're going to those NA meetings, you are getting to know these people.
Yeah.
And if you see one person and you hear their story and it sounds similar to what maybe your kid's feeling,
Yeah.
their feelings,
Yeah.
it's like, you know what?
Like, could they go to a meeting?
Absolutely. Absolutely
Yeah.
go to an NA meeting. Or after the meeting, if you feel so inclined and if you feel comfortable enough, you could go up to that person, introduce yourself, and be like, listen, I've got a daughter who's telling me the same
Yeah.
things you're telling me.
Yeah.
Or I can
Yeah.
see is mad about the same things you're
Yeah.
mad about. Would it be okay for you to come talk to them, or would it be okay if I brought her
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
and you talk to her?
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Well, and honestly speaking, from my own experience too, when you go through things like that are confusing and hard to figure out and all this stuff,
yeah.
you don't want to talk to somebody who doesn't understand.
Or you don't want to be, and I completely understand the
You
feeling.
don't want to be on blast.
You don't want to be in blast, and you don't want to be sitting in a room like
Yeah.
talking to maybe somebody who doesn't understand.
Yeah, but if you're talking to somebody who knows what you've been
Absolutely.
through, like, I mean, I don't know how many people I've been able to talk to, or they've been talking to me because we've been through similar things.
Yeah.
You feel like you can open up to them, whereas
Mhm.
like parents, it's like, well, I can't open up to you. You've never been through this. You have no idea.
Especially parents who've never been drug users themselves.
Yeah.
You know, like when my daughters, when they get into their teenage years, I think that there'll definitely be some conversations that I'll be like, okay, I'm geared for this.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be her
Oh, yeah.
NA.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
Well,
like, all right.
and yeah, I mean, and even our house, we talk to our kids about what drugs are now, and it's more just facts. We try not to get all of our own emotional, like, personal beliefs in there. We try to only just give them facts.
Absolutely.
And that way we want to like armor them to recognize this is what could happen. This is what will happen. This is, this is what we've seen. And I even had a kid once who said, well, do you know anybody who has? I said, yeah. I'm like, Uncle Rajen has. And they go, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, and he made it through. And they're like, well, can we like ask him about that someday? I'm like, yeah.
And I would love to sit down with
them.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. So anybody listening, I hope that this is kind of giving you some tips and tools to kind of move forward, knowing that we just kind of have to keep fighting to find answers. I feel like it's self-experimentation with everything. Like, we got to try this. Is this going to work? No, that didn't work. Okay, let's try this. And I love hearing what you have to say because you have been through it. And like, I just want to, I guess the only thing that I've always wondered is like, when you finally decided to come out of it, because I have heard this, you cannot make a drug addict stop being a drug addict unless they want to. So what do you feel like, was that what it was for you? Were you kind of like one day you were like, I don't want to do this anymore and I got to figure out how to get out of it? Okay, so for me, we only have like a couple more minutes.
Okay, so I'll make this quick. For me, it was, yes, it's absolutely a decision. It's like anything else you're addicted to, whether it's soda or heroin.
Yeah, so if you're talking to a drug addict right now who happens to be listening, what would you say to them about if you want to get out of this?
If I was talking to a drug addict right now, I would probably say to him that, listen, man, this is nobody else's fault but your own. And that may seem a little harsh, but I think from a drug addict, sometimes they need to hear that. This is nobody else's fault but your own. Right? You're not...
Yeah. Even if you were hurt by somebody, even if this happened in your life.
Let me tell you, though, whatever abuse you felt in your life, or whatever neglect you felt in your life, or whatever disadvantage you felt in your life, you will feel a lot less abused, a lot less lonely, a lot less disadvantaged, killing it in life sober. Because let me tell you, the biggest decision I had to make when I got sober was, why am I doing this? That was a question I had to ask. I asked myself all the time, why am I getting sober right now? Why? And there's a bag of excuses right there in the back of my mind, ready to get me back into it. But there was, for some reason, and this is just me personally, because a lot of friends struggled for many years and are still struggling or have died, which is they let the excuses win. But for some reason in me, I just felt that there is something waiting for every single person struggling with addiction. I will tell you this, and I will attest this. Something better for you will always be waiting for you if you kick this habit. I promise you that. Even if it's being able to wake up, and it's a weird feeling, and I think only addicts will really understand it. When you wake up and you have a sense of like, oh my God, I feel so much better not being addicted right
Mm.
now. For me, I'll tell you personally that I met my wife. I met my wife a year after being fully sober. And I will tell you, I would not have been with her right now. I would not have my daughters. I would not have everything I have in my life had I let one of those excuses be stronger than the promise that something better is waiting for you. And I've got friends who will tell you that maybe it wasn't a marriage that was waiting for him, but it was a job opportunity. And if you had been using continuously, that opportunity would have been gone. My wife would have moved on. I never would have been there. I never would have met her. I never would have been ready for her. Right? So if you can just accept that challenge in yourself and keep reminding yourself that there is something waiting for me, it's a twofold plan because it also reminds me every day why I got sober. Because when I wake up and I wake up next to my beautiful wife and my little daughters come in there and they call me daddy and I'm the light of their lives, that goes back to this is why I got sober and how thankful I am that I am sober, because I wouldn't to even think about me not having one of my daughters in my life is crazy,
Yeah.
But it's that reminder. It all comes back to that decision I
Yeah.
made, to like something better is waiting for me.
Yeah.
And I will promise you, not just something, multiple things. Multiple things will get better for you. It doesn't matter if you're 13,
Yeah.
you're 50, whatever your addiction was, the second you stop using, you will always have better things start happening to you. And you will have so much more perspective in life, so much more, just so much more, so much light, so much more
Yeah.
light in your life.
And I watched you fight, so it wasn't like it was easy to get
No,
to that
it was
point.
not easy, because I'm telling you, though, that bag of excuses that's on your mind, it's not going anywhere soon.
Yeah.
A year of sobriety, it's still there, but there's a little less. The thing that changes is the excuses don't go away.
Yeah.
Just the ability and the reasoning behind you saying no to those excuses
Yeah.
becomes stronger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And honestly,
Well, and that's huge
yeah, well,
for people, like, because I think that's to say about anything, whether it's drug addiction or anything. Like, when you want to stop something, you have to be willing to make that choice. And you have, and how cool that you can look back and say, no, I didn't buy into the lie that I didn't have a choice in this. Like, I made this choice and I had to fight my way through it, and it sucked, but I have something every day that reminds me, and I found that hope and that thing that's made it better. So.
Everything, and I can tell you this personally for me, everything that I wanted when I was getting high, that I almost even to an extent felt like I never would have,
Yeah.
the second I got sober, was one brick towards building it. And I've actually shocked myself many times over, getting some of those things that I felt were so unattainable. Musically, I always thought the drugs would make me a better player. And I struggled when I got sober to start playing again, because I felt like I couldn't play the same unless I was high.
Yeah.
But I've actually gotten to the point where I play better than I've ever played in my entire life, or at least I feel so easy to get connected to it.
Yeah.
That was a struggle. Motivation for life, it's come threefold. I can't stop.
Yeah.
Because one of my biggest things that helped me quit was just staying busy. And now it's that's my addiction.
That's your new addiction. Like, yeah, like I've heard you have to replace one addiction with another.
Yeah, my addiction is I just go.
You go. Yeah, that's true. Go. You do.
And I start, like I do so much and it's so awesome, but I'm just accomplishing things left and right. And I've seen friends who've only recently started getting sober, and they've struggled a lot harder than I did.
Yeah.
But it's starting to happen for them too.
Awesome.
New jobs.
Yeah.
Jobs. Just because you're a felon doesn't mean that you can't get a good job.
Yeah.
Just because you've done some horrible things doesn't mean that you can't ask for forgiveness for it. Because I've asked forgiveness from specific people who I've done horrible things to in order to get things to get high with.
Wow.
You know, I won't go into all the details, but
Yeah.
we're running out of time. But there's always forgiveness, and it will
Yeah.
always get better as long as you stay sober.
Yeah.
Trust me, there is always something great
Yeah.
waiting for someone,
Yeah.
and it's sometimes not what you expected.
Yeah.
I didn't know I wanted to make furniture. I really didn't.
And now
I
here you
had
are.
zero thought in my mind growing up, ever once. Even when I was in wood
Oh my
class, I was like, yeah, okay, this
Whatever.
is an easy D,
Yeah.
you know, just a pass.
But like listening to you, part of that whole process is being willing to believe in
Oh yeah,
that, to be
absolutely,
willing to believe in something in the future. So
absolutely.
I'm probably gonna have to have you come back again because this is so helpful
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
awesome. And I hope all of you listening could really take some really great insight from this. And find some resources, whether you're a parent, a loved one, or if you're someone struggling with drugs and want to get out of it on your own. This is a conversation that we need to talk more about, and we will be talking about this. And so thank you, Rajen, for being so open and yourself and
Absolutely.
just sharing your experience. So,
Absolutely.
okay.
I'm happy to.
We'll see you later.
All right.